welcome to What's Past Us podcast. My name is Roberts.
And I'm Steve.
I'm Damian.
And I'm James, and welcome to this special Halloween edition of the podcast, where we're going to be talking about some theatre superstitions, some ghost stories, and horror films and things like that.
And if that's your thing, and you're watching on YouTube, why not like, comment, and spookscribe?
And if you're listening to us on any other platform, please hit that follow button.
Spookscribe. Really?
That's interesting.
Oh dear.
You didn't tell us about that one.
If you've been planning that one,
I literally just clicked in my head
you
saying,
just think of that at the top of your head.
yeah.
And that, unfortunately, is going to be the tone of the show this week.
Right, so shall we talk about some superstitions first? So actors and theatres are known for having lots of superstitions. Some of them are quite well known, others a little less so. Obviously, the really famous one is not saying the name of the play Macbeth in a theatre. So you're supposed to refer to it as the Scottish play. And there's sort of various theories as to where that came from. The interesting one, I don't know if I think you've heard this one, Damian. I think we've talked about it before. I think this was talked about by Ian McCann.
Where would he have talked about this, and what did he say?
I think it was in an interview that he did. I've seen it on YouTube. So the theory is that back in the days of kind of repertory theatre, when people like McCann and Patrick Stewart and all these kind of actors of that generation were performing just all the time and making very, very little money, if the theatre was running a bit low on money, a show that they could put on that was just guaranteed to make money would be Macbeth. So supposedly, if you were an actor in repertory theatre and you heard someone saying Macbeth in the theatre, that meant that the theatre was running low on money and you might not get paid at the end of the week. So that's supposedly where the superstition came from about saying Macbeth in a theatre, although that could just be complete nonsense.
I've heard a superstition where if anyone says Macbeth around the whole theatre, then bad luck tends to happen. But I looked into that very theory once, ages ago. I can't state my sources because it's a long time ago and I can't be bothered looking it up, to be honest. But the theory was that you can't say it in the green room. And that's where everyone was wrong and thought it was throughout the whole theatre. Whilst they said it was just the green room you can't say it in, or else you'll have bad luck. I can't remember for the life of me why it's the green room, but
presumably this rule doesn't apply if you're actually doing a production of Macbeth, because if you're doing a production of Macbeth, obviously you have to say the word Macbeth quite a few times in the production. So I don't know how the superstition supposedly just ignores that, presumably.
In regards to the script, some actors even avoid quoting lines from Macbeth, the Scottish play, until they're actually doing the performance itself, especially some of the lines of the witches.
Interesting.
it's funny that everyone's got their own theories on superstition.
Yeah.
I've got my own theory just by looking more into it, but I don't believe in superstition, but I've got theories about it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like if you're actually in a production, kind of, you know, you can be quite nervous, and I think sometimes, even if you're not superstitious, it can bring out some of those kind of OCD traits of like rituals that you go through or don't go through before a show to kind of get yourself in the right frame of mind. So I guess it's, although it's not necessarily superstition, sometimes actors have certain rituals that they go through before going on stage. Like some people go off into a corner and sit by themselves quietly.
Going back to the Scottish play and the curse and all that, are any of you aware how you go about undoing the curse, supposedly?
No.
I can't remember.
According to the Royal Shakespeare Company's website, you leave the theatre, spin around 3 times, and you spit, curse, and knock on the theatre door and ask to be readmitted.
Brilliant.
Sounds a bit too much just to solve a superstition.
I know. A joke.
Exactly, it's a joke.
That's according to the Royal Shakespeare Company's website, though.
So I've looked up some more here, and some of which actually I've heard of. One of them is a bad dress rehearsal means the show will be a hit, or
Yeah, I've heard that one.
the opposite of that is a good dress rehearsal means you're going to have a bad show, which makes sense, I think, because, it's if you have a bad dress rehearsal, I think it makes you focus a lot more when it comes to doing the first performances. So that kind of makes sense.
Another thing I saw is about whistling in the theatre as well.
Yes, that one's interesting.
It's to do with help us backstage to do the staging and raising and lifting the staging. The stage director, stage manager even, whistles up to signals when to put it down and change the scenery rather. If the actors absentmindedly start whistling at the wrong times and they put it down, then that's why you're told not to whistle in theatres. That's where that's from.
I can't remember where I literally heard this a couple of days ago somewhere. I can't remember why. I think it was something to do with it being that sailors, when they weren't at sea, would often go into the theatres because they were used to rigging. Yeah. And so they go and they do flies. So where they'd be pulling the ropes and lifting scenery up and things. So if you whistled, which they did on ships, that whistles would be used as signals. And
that's it. Yeah.
So you're liable to have something drop on your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. The kind of the origins of these are quite interesting. Never bring a peacock feather on stage.
I just read that one.
Which is interesting. There's an actress that we've worked with in the past that has a tattoo of a peacock feather.
Pretty much every time we go on stage, we are bringing a peacock with us. James.
Yeah.
Mirrors on the stage are bad luck. It's the fear of the mirror breaking, resulting in several years of bad luck. No, it's pretty much in a nutshell, causing havoc with lighting design.
Another big one is saying break a leg instead of good luck, which is, I think, one that pretty much everyone does. It's because the kind of frame that holds the curtains, the corner of that frame is called a leg. So if you were breaking a leg, it would be because the curtain's being opened and closed so many times because you've given such a good performance that you're just doing lots and lots of encores. So that's supposedly where it comes from, which again is quite interesting.
Yeah.
In relation to break a leg, there are other professions who have similar things. For example, professional dancers, they say merde, which is the French word for shit. And in Spanish, mucha mierda, which means lots of shit, which is because in the times where carriages would bring the audiences to the theatres, it relates to the bigger the audience, the more carriages, so the more poop from the horses.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's another one. According to theatrical superstition, sleeping with your script under your pillow helps you learn your lines.
I'll have to remember that one.
I used to do that. I used to do that all the time. Like, I generally used to do that all the time. After Anne, our old director, I think she told me about it once.
Oh, okay.
And I did try it, and it didn't work. Nothing sinks into this noggin.
Well, I just say that it suggests that you just learn your lines the old-fashioned way.
I think sleeping with the producer is probably a more practical way of getting ahead in the theatre.
Yeah.
I'm looking into superstitions that are quite old. Bringing a pet, dog or cat, on a theatrical or film set is considered to bring bad luck to any production. A pet on set is bad luck.
I mean, again, for obvious practical reasons.
Well, yes, because they won't be trained fully, will they? Unless they're trained fully.
No, I mean, I don't think any cat has ever graduated from RADA.
Although I'm saying that, Damian, we're bringing a pet. We know of one person who's part of a theatre company who does bring his dog along.
Which is that?
Ben Crystal's dog.
Crystal dog.
Oh, okay.
He'd be a good one to talk to really about theatre superstition and all that, because he'd probably have a lot of knowledge about that, and he'd probably be able to tell us more about the origins of the curses and things to do with the Scottish play.
Maybe in a future episode.
So there's some actors, performers, their superstitions is to wear lucky items of clothing.
I used to have some lucky socks that I'd wear on stage.
All right.
It was a pair of socks given to me by my grandma. It was the last Christmas present she gave me before she died, and they were my lucky socks. But they've got holes in them now, so I don't wear them.
You'll have to learn to darn then, won't you? So you can darn your holes in your socks.
Darning my socks in the night when there's nobody there.
Damian, do you have any rituals or superstitions or go on stage or anything?
I do not.
Okay.
We always sing Springtime before we go on stage.
Oh yeah, we do that, yeah.
A lot of the superstitions as well involve theatre ghosts and things like that. And the theatre that we perform at regularly, the Ucheldre Centre in Holyhead in North Wales, supposedly has a ghost referred to as the Ucheldre ghost, which I don't believe any of us have actually seen, but we know people that have seen said ghost.
Yes.
So I wondered if you wanted to talk about that.
I didn't even know there were ghosts.
Oh, didn't you?
No. So this is the first I've heard of it.
What I've heard about the Gaydon ghost is that one day Christina and Bethan were trying to do a few jobs around the Ucheldre Centre. I think they heard a noise. We didn't know what the noise was, no one was around, so they went to check the security cameras. And right where they were, after they left, there was a white figure going across the camera. And I think they said it looked like a human figure. One of them walked down there to see if anyone was there. No one was there.
But you thought you heard the ghost the other day, didn't you, Damian? But it was... why don't you tell that story?
I was painting in the Angharad Centre, just painting the plinth to get the centre open up for business. And as I was finishing, I could hear some little girls laughing. And it sounded like it was coming from is it the foyer in the front seat of it? And I was thinking, that can't be right, because it's locked, no one can be there. So I was thinking, hang on, if no one can be there, could it be the Ucheldre ghost? So I had that going through my mind, and I went outside, and I realised, oh, so it's just girls actually laughing outside here. And they were literally laughing outside. In the gallery in the Ucheldre, there's a white wall that they put in place, but behind that white wall is an old door.
Yeah.
And that old door leads out to the amphitheatre. Because they were laughing in the amphitheatre, the noise reverberated between the walls, so it sounded like it was coming from a different room.
Also, Bethan's daughter Charlotte told me of an experience that she had in the same area. I can't remember exactly what it was when she was walking through or just heard something, and it scared her a little. She doesn't go on their own there now. And I remember once joining one of the other members of the Ucheldre Rep. We joined a group of people that were there doing a ghost hunt in the Ucheldre Centre. I'm going back, I think, to about 2014, I think, give or take. And a group of people, and they were walking around the centre, torches and recorders and things that they had. We were on the stage, sat in a circle, some of us, and did a little seance. And there was one moment where questions were asked, and if there's somebody there, please touch one of us in the circle on a arm or shoulder or something. And admittedly, I did feel something touch my arm. I don't know what.
Spooky. And the Ucheldre Centre used to be a church for the convent that no longer exists, but the convent was this large building that was next door, what's now the car park and the council estate. And so I wonder if the Ucheldre ghost is the ghost of a nun, which would be quite creepy.
Talking of the ghost of a nun, come back to me again. I used to work in the Priory, St David's Priory. I think there were some nuns that used to be there, and they used to take in homeless children, look after homeless children, is my understanding. Because there was a place in the attic room where little spaces where beds would go, little sections. And we had on camera, there was something had happened one evening, some disturbance, and I was looking through the camera, because I was one of the only ones who knew how to work it, the CCTV. There was a couple of other staff in the room with me, and we got to the camera that was above the rear door, looking down and towards the garages at the back of the Priory at the time. And we saw by or near the door, we saw what looked like, or what we can only describe as like an orb by the back door, and then what looked like 3 or 4 children is what we decided on what it might have been, doing what looked like ring-a-ring-a roses and then this orb doing something by the door, as if to say, as if it like it's one of the nuns was saying something, saying, time to go now, time to come in, and just sunk down into the ground and disappeared.
That sounds creepy.
Actually, talking of floating orbs,
Yeah.
I seem to remember Angharad actually telling me about seeing orbs in the Ucheldre Centre up by the kind of the tech gantry.
Oh, right.
Or whatever you want to call it.
Oh.
But I can't remember what she said exactly, so we'd have to ask her about that.
Yeah,
So,
I'll have to speak to her about that.
yeah, lots of spooky goings on in Holyhead.
So we've had these little experiences. So would you guys say that you believe in ghosts?
No.
No.
I believe
Not
there's...
necessarily, no.
I believe there's something there. But I also would believe with seeing is believing. You know. I mean, I've had a few, go back to when I used to work in the Priory again, I had a couple of, well, quite a lot of occasions in the Priory where, when I was locking up, where I always felt I'd been watched by someone, but there was nobody there. And I always felt myself trying to look at the same spot every time in the hall upstairs and down towards the back door in the hall downstairs. I always felt like I was being watched by someone or something.
I do believe ghosts exist, but I also believe that no technology man can ever make can actually talk or even find any ghosts.
Okay.
Like, I think all of that is just a lot of junk, really. A lot of the tools they use a bit of radio feedback from anything. So it could have been picked up random words from a radio.
Yeah.
I've been on a couple of ghost hunt things with my late friend Brian and his sister Helen. And we were up at the Breakwater in Holyhead. She had a, I forget what you call it, like a ghost box thing where it uses radio signals, but she'd had it in reverse, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was on, and she was asking questions, with me and Brian stood by. And I heard my name mentioned once on it. But again, that could be radio picking something up, like Damian was saying. I'm not sure. But we moved to a different spot, and we distinctly heard low, deep growl sort of noise. Needless to say, we finished up pretty quickly and headed home.
You see, I believe that you hear what you want to hear.
Well,
even if you don't want to hear it, you subconsciously want to know it exists.
I wasn't wanting to hear a low, deep growl, believe me.
Have any of you been in the Ucheldre Centre on your own at night time?
Oh, yes. Plenty of times.
Bit creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, I've a couple of times in between finished rehearsals with one group to wait for the other group, just being there and to open the door when they come in. Done that a couple of times. But yeah, like you say, it's a little creepy.
I must admit that the one time I did that, I think it was at the start of this year. I must admit I did sort of switch quite a lot of lights on just because I didn't like kind of being there in the dark on my own. I found it a bit creepy.
Yeah, I think I would have probably done something similar.
Well, I think because it's a huge place as well, so you sort of hear strange noises and whatnot.
An old place.
When I arrived at the Ucheldre Centre, I've got let in, and then whoever let me in left. I was waiting for Anne at the time for us to arrive for Props Theatre School, and I was just there on my own for ages. There's only one light on, which is the work light, and all I could hear around the building anyway was creaking. Every time I was probably like 16, 17, and at that age I still get freaked out by anything. So any creak that was happening, I was like, ooh, what was that? After a while, I just kind of zoned it out by just blasting music, like full blast through my Bluetooth speakers. Oh, good times.
Okay, does anyone know the answer to this question? Why does it seem that ghosts are more active at night?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've heard that one, but I can't remember what the answer is.
I feel like this is a run-up to a joke.
No, I'm terrible at jokes.
Give us some clues then, come on. It'll make a little fun.
Okay, it's to do with the electronic devices. Some say that when fewer electronic devices are used, we're more likely to detect ghostly spirits in our homes.
Oh.
Although that doesn't necessarily explain ghosts in times before we had electronic devices.
No.
I think probably it's more to do with the fact that humans are just hardwired to be afraid of the dark. So I think when it's nighttime, we're more aware of, potential dangers.
Yeah. I see what you get at. Yeah.
Do you think that a lot of it could be sort of in our heads, like when we are alone in a huge place and it's quite cold and quite dark, etc., etc.? Do you think a lot of it is just in our heads? We're just sort of making it up.
That would be my inclination, yeah. But I don't know.
I think when you're on your own, you're probably more likely to pick up on noises that you wouldn't normally hear when there's a lot of other people around. Even if it's just the building relaxing, if you like, just creaking and relaxing and just general building noises.
Yeah.
Makes you think it's something else. When you're on your own and it's dark, like you're saying, a bit spooky, your imagination goes into maybe a little bit of overdrive, a bit overactive.
What you just described then, Stephen, is exactly what Bethan told me what all the creaks and cracks sounds are in Ucheldre.
All right.
Is all the lights just cooling down?
Oh, yes.
Or just all the lights cooling down?
Yeah.
It just makes creaks noise.
That makes sense, yeah, because with the glass of the lights, it expands and it heat. So, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, makes sense.
So, seeing as it's Halloween today, or it will be when this is released, it isn't. We're recording this in advance, obviously, but should we talk about some of our favourite Halloween media, films, TV, books, plays, whatever?
Okay.
Good idea.
We shall.
I was gonna say you want to go first, Rob or James?
One good film that I watched a while ago. I mean, it came out in 2008. Whether you guys have watched it as well. There is two films. Like there's part 1, part 2. But the first film was definitely the better one. The Strangers. Have you guys heard of that?
I've
heard of it. I haven't seen it.
I've heard of it. I can't remember if I have seen it.
I don't really recommend the first one. I mean, the second one is alright, but it's with a lot of things for me. It's just always like the first film or the original stuff is always the better stuff. In my opinion,
apart from when it comes to Shrek.
When it comes to Shrek, yeah. Well, Shrek is an exception. But the ending to this film, I thought was really creepy because, spoiler warning, if anyone who hasn't watched it, at the end where they get, where the strangers, the 3 strangers, capture the victims, they have them tied up on a chair, and the victims are like, oh, why are you doing this to us? And then the strangers are like, because you are home. Like, it really says it in a really creepy voice. And just like that, just simple line, just, it creeps me out a little bit. Like, it's just because they were home. But it's a really good film, I think. If, like James, you said you haven't watched it, I do recommend that you watch it.
A show that I'd recommend is a TV program called Ghosts, and it's a sitcom on the BBC made by the same people that made Horrible Histories, and I'd recommend that. It's about a young married couple that inherit a house, like a large sort of manor house, and the woman has an accident and suddenly she can see that the house is haunted by these ghosts played by the cast of Horrible Histories. It's not particularly scary. It has a couple of little moments, but it's a nice sitcom, and the second series has just come out, and so I'd recommend that. That's quite a fun show and well written. Watched the entire first series in one evening.
I know there is a gothic horror story that you have actually seen, James, in the theatres. Probably seen a live broadcast. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was they broadcast that on YouTube during lockdown with Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller. Yeah.
Have you seen both versions? Cumberbatch playing
Yes.
the monster and playing Frankenstein. Do you have any particular way as a favourite, or do you just enjoy both?
I think I preferred Cumberbatch as the. I think I preferred him as the monster.
Okay.
But that might just be the bias of the fact that I watched that version first. But
Oh, right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
But
yeah.
I watched them both with my mum, and she preferred it the other way around.
Oh, right.
But yeah, it's a good. It was a good production. It was really good.
But since you're not one for spooky films, James, I've got an idea of a perfect horror film. Perfect Halloween film for you to watch, James. Hocus Pocus.
I was literally going to say that's one of my favourite Halloween films.
There we go.
And plus, one of the buildings, the high school that's within the film of Hocus Pocus, is the same building on the title screen of Friends.
Is it?
Yeah. Do you know where the fountain is on Friends? Yeah. The building behind the fountain is used in Hocus Pocus.
Oh, right.
And the fountain's there too.
Cool. I didn't know that. There we go. There we go, people.
Fun fact.
Shall we do the quiz now, then?
Yes.
Let's do the quiz.
Now, here we go. James and his spooktacular Halloween quiz. I probably just hyped it up too much, but there we go.
So, 5 questions. They're all multiple choice. So, I'll read the questions and the choices, and then you write down your answers, and then I'll go over the answers at the end. Question 1. In Macbeth, what sign convinces Macbeth that he must go through with killing the king? Is it A, one of the witches appears in his bedroom, B, he has a nightmare about the murder, C, he sees an imaginary dagger, or D, the ghost of his father visits him? Question 2. In Hamlet, what is the name of the ghost? Is it A, Horatio, B, Rosencrantz, C, Banquo, or D, Hamlet? Okay, question 3. In Julius Caesar, where does Caesar's ghost tell Brutus he would see him again? Is it A, heaven, B, Philippi, C, Coriolis, or D, Rome? Question 4. In 2012, Daniel Radcliffe starred in a film adaptation of which supernatural horror novel and stage play? Was it A, The Woman in Red, B, The Woman in Black, C, The Woman in Bed, or D, The Blair Witch Project? And question 5. A light left on in an empty theatre for superstitious reasons is called a what? Is it A, a night's light, B, a work light, C, a Scottish light, or D, a ghost light?
We've just had the question, so Here is the answers. If you guys played along, then I'll see what questions you got correct. That makes sense? I don't know.
Okay, question 1. In Macbeth, what sign convinces Macbeth he must go through with killing the king? The answer was C. He sees an imaginary dagger. Okay, question 2. In Hamlet, what is the name of the ghost? The answer was in fact D. Hamlet. Okay, question 3. In Julius Caesar, where does Caesar's ghost tell Brutus he would see him again? The answer was B. Philippi, which is the place where there's the battle towards the end of the play, where Brutus sees Caesar's ghost and eventually dies, if I remember rightly. Question 4. In 2012, Daniel Radcliffe starred in a film adaptation of which supernatural horror novel and stage play? The answer was B. The Woman in Black, not The Woman in Bed. And finally, question 5. A light left on in an empty theatre for superstitious reasons is called a what? The answer was, of course, D. A ghost light.
Groovy, baby. 5 out of 5.
I got 3.
Rob?
Oh, I got 3 as well.
Oh, there we go.
Cool, so Damian is this week's winner. And that means that you're going to be writing the questions for next week, Damian. And this Christmas, as you're probably aware, most of the theatres are sadly still closed. So we've been forced to postpone our annual Christmas pantomime, which this year was Dick Whittington, for a year at least. unfortunately. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be doing anything. We're going to be doing a few sort of multimedia projects. We're going to be doing some audiobooks, audio dramas, some little short films and stuff like that, hopefully. And here's a little preview for something I've been working on this week. This is an excerpt from one of the Charles Dickens Christmas short stories, and we're going to be releasing a set of those at Christmas. And this is actually a ghost story, and it's called The Signal Man. Hope you enjoy. I have made up my mind, sir, he began, bending forward as soon as we were seated and speaking in a tone but a little above a whisper, that you shall not have to ask me twice what troubles me. I took you for someone else yesterday evening. That troubles me. Who is it? I don't know. Like me? I don't know. I never saw the face. The left arm is across the face and the right arm is waved, violently waved, this way. I followed his action with my eyes, and it was the action of an arm gesticulating with the utmost passion and vehemence, for God's sake, clear the way. One moonlit night, said the man. I was sitting here, and I heard a voice cry, Hello, below there. I started up, looking from that door, and saw this someone else standing by the red light near the tunnel, waving as I just now showed you. The voice seemed hoarse with shouting, and it cried, Look out, look out. And then again, Hello, below there, look out. I caught up my lamp, turned it on red, and ran towards the figure, calling, What's wrong? What's happened? Where? It stood just outside the blackness of the tunnel. I advanced so close upon it that I wondered at its keeping the sleeve across its eyes. I ran right up to it, and had my hand stretched out to pull the sleeve away when it was gone. Into the tunnel, said I. No. I ran on into the tunnel 500 yards. I stopped and held my lamp above my head and saw the figures of the measured distance and saw the wet stains stealing down the walls and trickling through the arch. I ran out again faster than I had run in, for I had a mortal abhorrence of the place upon me, and looked all round the red light with my own red light, and I went up the iron ladder to the gallery atop of it, and I came down again and ran back here. I telegraphed both ways. An alarm has been given. Is anything wrong? The answer came back both ways. All well. Resisting the slow touch of a frozen finger tracing out my spine, I showed him how that this figure must be a deception of his sense of sight, and how that figures originating in disease of the delicate nerves that minister to the functions of the eye were known to have often infected patients, some of whom had been conscious of the nature of their affliction, and had even proved it by experiments upon themselves. As to an imaginary cry, said I, do but listen for a moment to the wind in this unnatural valley while we speak so low, and to the wild harp it makes of the telegraph wires. That was all very well, he returned, after we had sat listening for a while, and he ought to know something of the wind and the wires, he who so often passed long winter nights there, alone and watching. But he would beg to remark that he had not finished. I asked his pardon, and he slowly added these words touching my arm. Within 6 hours after the appearance, the memorable accident on this line happened, and within 10 hours the dead and wounded were brought along through the tunnel over the spot where the figure had stood. So as we're coming to the end of this episode, something I have to do. I've been told that our biggest fan, I need to give a shout out to our biggest fan, which is Damian's mum, Marie. So if you're listening to this, which I'm sure you are, hi, how are you doing? I hope you're well. And thanks for being our biggest fan.
She held me at gunpoint to make you say this.
She's actually stood behind me.
Hello.
Okay, so unfortunately, once again, we are coming up to the end of this episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed this Halloween special, and you know what to do if you have. I say it at the end of each and every single episode, which is like, subscribe, and comment down below telling us what you think. And if you are watching on any other platform, then remember to hit that follow button.
This podcast is now available on most streaming platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and Google Music.
Also, check out the links in the description for our other channels and websites. And on that note, happy Halloween, one and all, and it's bye from me.
It's a spooky goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
And to play us out, we've already played some music from this production, which was Death Trap. If you haven't watched our episode about it, I think it was episode 3, so go and watch that. But here's a piece of music that we didn't play in that episode, and this is probably the most sinister bit of music. And this is from the murder scene in Act 1, and it's quite a creepy sequence, and so it seems appropriate. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.